Welcome everyone to another great conversation with some fabulous artists, the artists of Beasts and Burdens, Adonna Khare and Christian Zvonik. This show will be up through December 23rd, and this is a must-see show. And I know all shows are must-see, but this really is a must-see. You've got to see these just lovely giant drawings in person and study every mark and then every nuance of light and reflection in these glass pieces is equally inspiring and inspired. So welcome, Adonna and Christian.
Thank you.
Adonna is an artist from the LA area, and she has a Master of Fine Arts degree from California State University, Long Beach. Her works are in numerous prestigious private and museum collections around the world, and she's been featured in a lot of really amazing publications. I'll just read a few here. Los Angeles Times, Huffington Post, American Art Collector, Juxtapose Magazine, High Fructose, My Modern Metropolis, and more. And I just want to point out how well-rounded those publications are. Her work has been exhibited at Crystal Bridges Art Museum, Boise Art Museum, Minneapolis Institute of Art, Grand Rapids Art Museum, the Long Beach Art Museum, Yellowstone Art Museum, and Dunedin Fine Arts Center. I can't wait to get into your work, Adonna. And I think what's really amazing about this too is the simplicity of your materials is really elegant. Christian is a St. Petersburg, Florida-based artist, and I've worked with Christian a number of times. Catherine, you have too. And he also serves as the preparator at the Imagine Glass Museum, which is a fabulous new museum here in St. Petersburg. He began his career in 1995 in Seattle, Washington, the year I graduated high school, Christian, learning from gaffers from the famed Chihuly Boathouse, and then following creative opportunities working for numerous established artists throughout the West Coast of the US. Christian has had the honor of working with top national and international artists such as David Bennett and Lino Tagliapietra.
Lino, yes.
Christian's work is inspired by the boundless variety of forms found in the natural world and by the universal themes expressed in art from ancient peoples from around the globe. We want to just share their websites. So if you wanted to check out more of their work, in particular, Adonna's installation pieces here where she's had the opportunity to draw on the wall. I thought only kids did that. But yeah, really fascinating. Christian has an Instagram page, so that will be your best bet to see more of his work, including some videos here of him making these works. And we just want to mention that Christian made these pieces specifically for this show, and we had developed a concept around the theme of the show about a year and a half ago. That's when we started talking. So welcome, Adonna and Christian. We're really glad to have you, and thank you for joining us, and thank you all of our guests and members and students and donors and staff and board for everything you do to make it possible to be here. Also, Adonna, I just want to give a brief acknowledgement to your representatives at Visions West Contemporary in Montana and Denver for sharing some of your work with us, as well as M.A. Doran Gallery in Oklahoma.
I noticed that the Lone Ranger has joined us. You see that? Ed Ziegler.
Oh, he always.
Guess who it is?
Welcome, Ranger.
Oh, my name's giving me away.
I love the spirit. And
Hey, it's Halloween time.
That's right.
If the hat was bigger, it'd be kind of Hamburglar.
Yeah, yeah.
There you go.
The name of the show here is Beasts and Burdens, and I have to give credit to Adonna. I borrowed that from your artist statement, except you said, the more common phrase is beast of burden. And for this show, what I really saw in your work, and then the concept that Christian and I were working with, was the idea of the joys and difficulties in life, and how we kind of have to balance all of that, especially as parents and artists. So I think the three of us in particular, in the context of this show, have a lot to bond over with that. And this piece for me is I would just have to say a masterpiece. I don't like to use that word too much, but I'll use it for this one. Again, seeing it in person is just incredible. And this has been a wonderful piece for all of our students to see. And they had a lot of questions about your process, your planning. How long does it take to make the piece? By the way, this is almost 20 feet long, so forever. So tell us, Adonna, a little bit about your process, in particular, maybe how much planning goes into this, and how much of it is improvisation as you're working.
So these large scale drawings are very much kind of free flowing. I start with a general idea, which is a super rough sketch. Sometimes it's such a bad sketch, I actually have to label it. So it was a tiger and a zebra caught in, I remember specifically this particular sketch, and it always comes when I'm working on another drawing, then the idea for the next drawing comes. So as I'm working on one drawing, actually the bears that you saw in the beginning, the floating bear drawings, then the idea for this one came up, and it was just about connection and breaking that connection, and this kind of overall connection in life with each other, with the natural world. And so I picked two striped animals, which has been used quite often, but I wanted to find a way to take away predator and prey, take away up and down, and just kind of put them together. So the little sketch was a zebra and a tiger with a little bow in between them with their stripes, and it said tigers and zebras tied together, and that was it. And then that marinated in my brain for about a year before I could actually get to this drawing. So when I got to this drawing, I always just start with the concept and then let it grow. So it started with the initial tiger and the initial zebra in the center, and then it just expanded out from there. I don't do pre-sketches. I don't do a balanced composition sketch, which probably would save me time. Unfortunately, that's just not how my brain works. I need to see it. And on the left part of that drawing, I redrew that side. It took a couple weeks, but I took everything out and then redrew it back in because it just wasn't balanced and it wasn't saying what I needed it to say. For the materials, they are really simple. I use an archival paper. It's called Aquabee. It's all around my studio. I'll show you exactly. Oh, let me put Ozzy down. Sorry. So hi. These are all my materials right here. For blending, you can see I use an old sock. And I use just carbon pencils and erasers. And I would say most of the time I put a fine layer of charcoal dust down, and that's how I balance my composition. So I'll draw in with an eraser first. So that would be my layout. So I would go my main tiger, my main zebra, draw those in. That's my main focus. And then I'll kind of expand from there. And then with an eraser, start to kind of block out basic shapes. And then I go in, look at tons of photos. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of photos of zebras, and then start moving them around in space to fit. And then tons and tons of tigers and moving them around to fit. And then put my daughter on a beach ball and see what it looks like. And then impose a tiger-ish skeleton on top, and and just kind of play around like that. And that's being staged in my studio. I can't even tell you how many drawings my daughter has posed for. Okay, now you're a tiger. Okay, now you're a zebra. Okay, now you're a wolf. put this, put this, you know, floaty on your arm so I could see what it looks like, you know, like that kind of stuff. And then that's how I kind of piece the rest of the information together.
She's a good sport. How old is
Well,
she?
she's 12 now, not as good of a sport as a preteen as she was in younger years. I will make that very clear.
Now,
It's
do
taking
you,
more bribery.
Yeah, now it's more of like, if you do this for me, we're gonna go out for pizza. Like now it's more of like a negotiation. Like if I pose, I want more Wi-Fi, you know. So.
Yes.
and do you use the computer at all, Adonna, when you're manipulating the space? Not at all.
I'm computer illiterate. I was actually really stressed about this morning getting on my laptop.
Oh,
No,
I love that. I love that you
paper.
don't use the computer.
I love paper. I love pencils, and I love this. I call it my puzzle. I work myself every single large drawing. I work myself into a corner, and I'm like, what did I do? This is terrible. And then I have to unravel it, and that's the process. It's like this really fun, challenging art puzzle that I work myself into, and the challenge is to get myself back out of it at the end. Again, it's exhausting, but that's kind of how it works for me, because now that process is so much a part of the drawing that I almost look forward to that part where I'm like, okay, let's get out of this now.
Now, one thing I'd like to say, looking at the works in the gallery, that this piece is not coming across so much on the computer screen as the high contrast of blacks and the whole range. And then your earlier works, and the one with the bras and the clothesline and the squirrels, that you worked with such heavy blacks. And we were, of course, wondering, how can you work so big and not smear? And how can you keep it so crisp and gorgeous? But I did sort of notice that evolution over time, that the works became, the line and mark making was lighter.
Yeah, I think I go through phases where the clothesline one was like, I mean, I just ground it into the paper. It was like a job. Like I was like, because I wanted this, like that imposing storm, and I wanted those elephants to almost glow and the clothes almost glow against it. So yeah, that was like a very physical piece, where like this bear one, it was like joy and light mark making and little marks that was just the joy of making the marks, where the clothesline was more of like an exercise of contrast. Like I just wanted to grind it into the paper.
And we also noticed, Adonna, that the paper that you used for this particular work, Elephant Clothesline, was heavier than than all of the other drawings seem to be on the same paper, but this one seemed to be on a little bit heavier of a paper. And I wondered if that didn't have to do with, you know, how black you wanted a lot of this.
That's exactly right. That's the only one that's not on the normal paper that I work on.
Yeah.
The normal paper that I work on could not carry that type of intense drawing on it. It wasn't like stable enough of a paper. And this paper was able to hold that dark tone better, and I couldn't get what I wanted on the normal paper that I use. Yeah.
Another question I have is, and I'm trying to think, on some drawings it's more evident than others, but it almost looks like you put down a gesso or something, because it looks like a flowy kind of air currents, a real delicate, like just delicate movement behind the large areas of graphite. Is there anything to that?
That's not gesso, those are just line marks. Like, are you talking about elephant, like the alligator one? That's just me trying to draw wind.
Wow.
I would just do these tiny little, I just wanted, when people, I like when people see it from a distance, but then as they get closer, there's more to tell. There's more stories. And that was just about movement and how to draw wind and air. And I was just just delighting in that repetition and these beautiful marks.
Yeah.
I lost the subject matter. It was just about mark making and movement.
Yes. It really must become such a meditation because it's every area of the surface is alive, however subtle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
That's-
It is. Yeah, I lose track of time a lot. Thank goodness for alarms on my phone.
In school schedules and right, it keeps you
Right, and now my daughter has a phone, so it's like, Mom, now, where are you? It's like, "Here."
well,
Mm.
yeah, I love talking to guests and especially students about how you draw with an eraser, because I think that's a really important part of drawing is when you come to the realization that you can pull, that drawing can be reductive. It doesn't have to be additive all the time. I think that's a really like huge breakthrough when you're drawing. So
Yeah, and it's I think a lot of times new artists and students are so scared to remove marks.
mm,
But I look at it as just as important as making the marks. Like I would say almost half of my drawing is removing marks as it is putting marks on the paper.
when I'm always talking about this particular area of pool party, this happens in other drawings too, but it's really evident right here.
Oh yeah,
where
you see.
you've literally moved the whole bird, and you can see
Oh yeah.
that you had almost developed this almost totally and then moved it.
It
And
was rendered, yeah, it was fully rendered, and then I took it off.
so you have this really wonderful element of process in the drawing, which is again for students is really amazing to see. Is like, wait, I can do that.
Mm. And it only adds to it. It adds to the richness, I think.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I call them ghosts. I like those are the ghosts I left behind. So, and I love leaving them too because you can see that it's yeah, this drawing is just as much about the process as it is the final product. And giving yourself to move something that was totally rendered and move it away is scary at first, but it's quite exhilarating once you start doing that. It's like I created something and now it's gone. It took 2 weeks to draw it and it took an hour to completely disappear.
Magician.
So just to answer that question quickly, how long does it take to do pool party? Does it take a year or 6 months?
Pool party took about a year.
Mm.
I don't work on the large ones usually exclusively. I always work on the large one with several small ones at the same time. So my exhibits usually have at least 1 or 2 big ones, but sometimes up to 30, 40 small drawings that accompany it. So if I worked on that just I think my mind might just like,
Yeah.
I need a little bit of time away so that when I look at it, I have fresh eyes and I can see the problems faster and see what needs to be done faster. Give myself a little bit of space from them.
So you're working on the wall, are you, or flat?
Well, right now
On the big, yeah.
on the big ones, I work on the wall.
And then do you cover them with glassine or something to protect when you are moving to a new area?
Yeah, no, I just leave it all open.
Really?
Yeah, I wear gloves
Yeah.
so that I don't get any of my oil, and I try not to rub my arm over it. That's why we have the erasers.
Cool.
Well, Christian, I think we talked just before we started this presentation about how, you brought your pieces in probably a day or so before we opened the show. And I'm kind of glad we did that because, you brought them in and all of Adonna's drawings were up and you were able to place these kind of where they should have been, right?
Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah, so we had this really beautiful nautilus shape with the stripes that went really well with the tigers and zebras. And then we have the bear, and this is when you first walk in, these two pieces are right on the same pedestal. And so it's really nice connections being made. Let's talk a little bit, Christian, about the concept that we came up with, or we changed actually a lot.
It evolved for sure.
Yeah. We had first talked about the possibility of doing a sort of Florida endangered species kind of idea. But that kind of changed, and I'm glad it did. It's not so specific. It's more, I think it's just a more elegant kind of concept that you came up with. So tell us more about how you melded your ideas with mine.
Well, originally I had previously made a series, actually several years ago, made a short series of pieces based on Egyptian canopic jars. And so I think those were the pieces that you had in mind, I think, when we were first talking. And you liked the idea, you were in your mind visualizing pairing with Adonna and having these vessels and these animals kind of coming through. But for me personally, I'd sort of worked that idea as far as I wanted to go with it. And then when we were talking more specifically like Florida animals, when we started talking about wildlife here, and we're getting away from the mysticism of the other pieces, I was trying to kind of, at first in my mind, make an adaptation of the canopic jar and kind of do something. But then, I have a great interest in archaeology and in geology. I love looking at fossils. I appreciate the fossil record. I think because I work with this material that basically comes from the ground, I love things that come out of the ground. I love, and artistically, I've been skewing towards wanting to touch on things that are kind of a little more primal, a little more things that are sort of more embedded in our DNA. Human beings all over the world for thousands and thousands of years have been creating these vessels, in vessels that have that they were emotionally portraying powers into, and usually they were associated with the afterlife, the travel, and so I like the idea when we started off talking about endangered species, about something going somewhere that's more timeless, and going to something almost kind of touching both ends of the timeline, the distant past and the distant future, and so what I wanted to do is sort of embody these pieces with sort of, or go at it with the same kind of intentions, because I think intentions are really important, that ancient peoples might have gone into when they were creating a sacred vessel, when they were creating something that had so much meaning. And so in the bodies, as you can see on this piece, I took native plants, and I basically constructed a very, very simple mold. And then I started putting different types of plant life into that mold and blowing these bubbles into them, and literally embossing them into the surface of the glass. So that's what you see. That's not something I manipulated by hand. I used plant life in this mold, and so in a way, it goes back to my interest in fossils. Now I've embedded this life into this material, and as long as this exists, that piece exists embedded into this material. So for me, that had a certain power to it. Literally almost preserving nature, forever, or as forever as this piece may last. Its potential is huge, right? It's kind of all about intentions, potential. And then with the animals, I wanted to see the animals less as protected or endangered, as more as kind of, this earth, no matter what we do to it, this earth is going to keep on going. We're just a blip, and so I want to, life in general is going to keep on going. So I wanted to kind of give these animals, a little more power. And so, I really wanted to reflect the less the physical part of the animal. And as I was, in the very beginning, I was talking to you about, the prototyping process, because with glass, you can't erase, you can't go back with an eraser and change something. It's like a song. You sing it all the way through, and if your voice broke somewhere in the middle, it just is what it is. That's what it's in the final piece. And so I sang my song multiple times. I went through different attempts at these forms, and every time I attempted a form, and so as we were saying earlier, I had, unfortunately had pieces crack long after they were made, had to go back and remake some, but it was a blessing. As so many problems in art are, we turn them into an opportunity. And every opportunity I took, I tried to reduce steps. I tried to simplify the forms. One of the things about glass, for me, a working kind of mantra is why glass. When I make things in glass, why glass? Because I do work in a lot of materials, but I feel like glass has properties that, when exploited, are magnificent. And so, one of those things is just the clarity, the color, the light, the inherent properties in the material is what I wanted to come through in the pieces. So that soft, beautiful glow in the bodies, in the vessel part of the form, I just wanted it to work with that texture of the plant life and kind of just get out of my own way and let it happen. And I think that turned out beautifully. And I think the more simple I made the figures, it just kind of came together, really. Yeah. So, Adonna, you talk about not really starting with a composition, sketching out your entire composition. I kind of approach it in a similar way. I know what I want. I know my intention. I know the spirit of what I'm trying to capture. And, you get into it, and then as the work starts to develop, you put it together. At this point, I trust my process, as I'm sure you do, Adonna, and I'm sure you do, Nathan, when you're painting. I just trust the process, and this is what I came up with.
Yeah, I would not trust myself with glass. But you do a wonderful job, and I love that you came up with this reverse embossed way of adding some localized texture, and then just tying it into the whole idea of preserving, what the sort of story of now for the future. I'm really glad that you transformed the concept into something that was, I guess, more regal than,
Wow, thank you.
critical. So, just I was worried a little, because I was worried that I had placed too much of a burden on not you as an artist, but your family by asking for a brand new series of work, especially this year when Ashes has come to us. So I just applaud you for, and Megan and
Well,
Ash.
this year's all been about kind of digging deep, and being a better person, evolving, growing. Now I've got this little boy. He's got tons of energy, and but I still have to keep doing what I'm doing, and so I have to be better. I have to be a better artist, a better human, and you threw, really, it was a challenge and it was an opportunity, and those are two things I love, so I appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity. And now that, everything's hard when you start, and then you get to the other side and you're so glad you did it. All good things come from struggle and from effort,
Sure. And Adonna, I want to move back to you and talk about, I don't want you to explain too much to us, because it's actually quite fun coming up with our own stories for all of the moths and the praying mantis and the handcuffs, and there's so much to find in your work. And but do moths for example, mean something specific to you, or the mantis, or here you snuck in a little bit of Jeff Koons?
You know,
That's great.
it's become a language. I've been drawing like this for so long now, showing work like this for over 20 years at this point. So what has happened is, as I've used these, they all come from an idea or a person, or let's say, I mean, here's an example, the wildebeest and the antelope on this, that it was kind of my response to the Great Migration in Africa and how dangerous that is, and how they still make this trek every year, and they know they're going to lose their herd along the way. There's predators, there's starvation, there's drought, but they do this every year, and how that's inherently dangerous, and just kind of tying that into what it's like to be a human being and a parent, for goodness sake. Like, it's inherently dangerous. We are
Yes.
always scared. We cannot always be, protect at all times, and that kind of vulnerability as a human. And so the handcuffs in that was to kind of try to hold it together, literally, physically, like our desire to hold it together and to protect. But right beneath that is the split in that iceberg. Like, it's gonna split.
Mhm.
And then, of course, all these things that I'm concerned about: the environment, mass extinction, the ice caps melting. I mean, these are all real elements to our lives that are scary, and not necessarily in our direct control, but we're on this journey, we're on this migration together. And it's kind of about that lack of control, but this connection that still connects all of us on this planet, and we're all kind of doing this thing together, voluntarily or involuntarily. We're still floating down this road together. So going back to what you're saying, yes, they all symbolize something, but now it could be, sometimes, especially the small ones, it's a one-on-one. Mantises are good luck. Mantises remind me of an animal that's already anthropomorphized in nature. Like, it already looks like a creepy human. And I'm like, done. My work here is done. They're already half. Like, and so the insects, a lot of times I'd like to use moths and butterflies because they change form. They're an animal that literally turns to goo, and they come out the other side and they can fly. So that idea that life can transform. I love eggs because we don't know what's in them. It's like this weird, miraculous, like, thing that forms life, and it could be anything. Bunnies to me symbolize innocence, and my daughter, and spring, and kind of this, like, vulnerability and innocence that I love. And I love to draw bunnies sometimes with teeth and claws, because I'm like, sometimes I feel like you need to have teeth and claws to survive, and they're these cute little fluffy things that get eaten all the time, and I really struggle with that. And like this alligator, I mean, again, this has to do with being a parent and the dangers out there. I actually drew this. I mean, it's kind of morbid. When, I don't know if you remember, years and years ago, during the Zika virus time, everybody was scared of the Zika virus, and there was a kid that was eaten or attacked by an alligator in Florida. At Disney World or something. There was
yes.
You remember what I'm talking about? So that actual, like, I was like, just like, as a new parent, like, oh my gosh. Like, so this was almost kind of me dealing with the world's issues and being a parent, and how out of control, like, we really are, that these things just happen in their nature, and it's life, and it's so this is like an attempt to kind of create a safety net with an almost taping this guy's mouth up, like, so yeah, they are symbols, and they are kind of like vessels for telling a story.
That's our Florida piece because it has mosquitoes in it too.
Mosquitoes, yes.
It's got an alligator. I don't know how you guys have, if you have wildebeest out there, but
Oh, sure.
Why not?
I went to
Busch
Florida for a
Gardens.
little bit and I saw lots, like an iguana fell out of a tree and
Oh.
almost hit
Oh
me
yeah.
because
Yeah.
it was really chilly that day.
hmm
And I was walking
Yeah,
in
that's
college
right.
and I was like, it's raining iguanas. And that stuck with me for sure.
I still have a fascination with the feral pig population down here. You know, it's just like,
Oh,
how bizarre. There's just millions of pigs running around in the woods, and you know, I've never seen one yet. I haven't seen one yet, but they're out there, and you know,
Dunedin
it's
in
just,
particular has an interesting pig history. Yes, our historical museum has a whole devoted wing to that.
oh wow.
Pig,
See,
yeah, wild
that-
pigs.
I
this is
love
the one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really love how you tackle, you know, a lot of these deeper issues with pieces that, you know, I mean, I think, you know, there's a lot going on in there, but I think most people's probably first feeling when they look at these pieces is the smile. I think that they've got humor. You have a really fascinating ways of creating tension within these pieces, and you're tackling these big issues in ways that, with pieces that invite you to explore them rather than being polarizing. You know, right now we have such a polarizing political, cultural environment, and these pieces don't get mired down in all that. You know, you do a really great job of creating something that just draws people in, begs you to explore it, and then these little things, these beautiful little things start coming out of it. So I applaud you on that. You know, it's hard to be an artist and actually say something right now. You know?
I do agree that there's that sense of whimsy, but the power is in the profundity and the tenderness, and
Mhm.
and these really surprising tensions, and I don't know how to describe. Yeah,
No,
just
yeah,
there's some very frightening elements, but
I
there's
totally
power.
agree with
Yeah.
both of you. And I think this is one of the areas of
Mhm.
all the drawings, you know, where you have this, it's like, wait a minute, tigers and zebras don't cuddle. But it's really nice to, it's like, oh, maybe they can.
You know, I have a funny story about this. I had posted it years ago, and I mean, they're literally zebras being held together with potato chip bag clips and with floaties on. And this one guy was really upset that I thought I didn't understand that zebras and tigers weren't hanging out in real life. I was like, that's what threw you off? Was it-
You know, all art is supposed to be actually accurate. You know,
Well, it was just so interesting because you're right. It's like people will see what they want to see, but I appreciate you saying that. It's, to me, it is about the invitation to come in. I don't want to jam anything down anybody's throat. It's my interpretation of the world around me, and in a way that hopefully brings awareness to the animals and the plants, and that we are not as separate beings on this planet. Like, we share a world together, and it is very much as much theirs as it is ours, and how our life experiences are a connection with all of us. So it's not about alienating a certain type of person or a certain thought process. It's about just telling a story about our shared experience in this life.
Yes.
But you do know storks don't need water wings, right?
Yes, I am aware that would probably make things more complicated for them.
Yeah.
But that feels right in the drawing.
It looks right too.
Yeah.
Now, Adonna, I would guess that you get approached often to do books. Do you?
I've done a few. I don't do that many. I think sometimes maybe children's illustrators get a little bit freaked out, maybe just a tad bit by some of the ways I connect things. But I've done a couple. Yeah. And
Okay.
I'd be open to do more in the future. It's
Oh, we
just,
should get some. We should get some in the art center while your show's there for a holiday show.
I have
Does it-
coloring books. I could
Oh
do
yeah.
that. I have a whole bunch of coloring books. I could send them.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And we should also mention, because this just completed in Grand Rapids, but you were the grand prize winner of Art Prize, correct?
Yes, in 2012.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
the large piece you showed in the very beginning, the elephants piece, it still is the largest piece I've ever completed. And I think it's 35 feet long by 8 feet tall.
Wow.
And once I was finished with my time in the museum, I'm pretty sure it was about 13, 14 feet tall by about 50 feet long by the time I finished adding onto the walls.
How was that? Were you drawing in front of people, so you were being observed the whole month long?
Yeah, yes, it was quite the experience. I didn't quite know what I signed up for. But Art Prize, my belief is that it's slightly different now, but the iteration of Art Prize that I was in 2012, once you were paired with a venue, the actual Art Prize is like about a month. And so since it's in Michigan and I'm from California, I absolutely could not afford to go back and forth. So I got a one-way ticket out there, and through the program, you got paired with like a family, and they like took in us
An
artists.
exchange student.
Yeah, I was like the art student, and I had two different women that I had stayed with that lived there. And so I split my time between two of them so I didn't overstay my welcome at either one place. And yeah, so every day I would go to the museum, and while the museum was open for people to view, I would just draw on the walls and expand the drawing. And thank goodness, because otherwise I don't know if I could have psychologically handled a month of standing next to my artwork. Like, this gave me like an opportunity to create a space where people could get lost in, not just the paper. So it allowed me to really expand and create a total experience, immersive experience for people when they came in to see the piece.
So Christian, as a glass artist, you've done that too. You made glass in front of people.
Yeah, I've done a ton of demonstrating. You know, when I first kind of did it, it freaked me out a little bit, you know, just because glass blowing is full of failure, as is a lot of art, but glass blowing especially is full of a lot of failure. And so it's just, and I remember one of the very first demos, the big public demos I did, you know, the piece crashed. And, you know, for whatever reason, I had the presence of mind in the moment to make that a part of the conversation and just say, you know, this is a big part of it. You know, what you're seeing isn't an anomaly. This is more the norm than what you see in a museum or in a gallery somewhere. You know, I mean, there's a lot of failure, there's a lot of struggle, there's a lot of things that don't go right. What gets presented to the public, of course, is, you know, hopefully it's the best of our intentions, but it's only a small fragment of the work that went into it. So, you know, when you see any given piece, you know, how many pieces led up to that? You know, how many
valuable, valuable. Yes.
That's so great, because students and a lot of people are so scared. We talked about failure, right? But by normalizing the actual process of art, like you're doing, like, this is just how it goes. How many of these you have to do before you get the finished product is just as much as important as just steps 1 through 10.
Oh, I believe too.
Yeah, and in the early part of glass blowing, you know, it really kind of did a number on my head, because I was you know, I worked in, you know, in wood and metal and a lot of other materials before that. And, you know, I was pretty adept. I could just kind of, you know, with the hand-eye thing, I could just kind of go to it and have a large level of success. But with the glass, you know, I had to learn to accept that. And then as soon as I embraced that, it all just got so much better. You know, and, you know, and I was able to personally evolve. And you know, I bet every artist probably feels this way about the material, their chosen medium. But for me, you know, glass the rules for glass are also the rules for life, you know. So, you know, so much about, you know, so much about it is, you know, your relationship with the existence of this material, and understanding your place in it, understanding how to not get in your own way, you know, understanding how that the material has a nature, and when you work with that nature, you have success, and when you try to push back against that nature, it pushes back against you. You know, there's always ways to break the rules, but the nature is always there, and it's something you're kind of always having to deal with.
I was surprised to realize that you also worked in metal too, Christian, so that those structures holding the jars you made as well.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, just so elegant.
Thank you.
Just really an extension of
Well, you know, it's part of treating them like artifacts. You know, I kind of wanted to give them an artifact-like treatment. I wanted them to have a certain timelessness, and so, and I didn't want them to look like a vase. You know, I didn't want it to feel like, you know, just an accessory. I wanted it to sort of have a presence of its own.
Yes.
Well, we should make some time for questions and answers from our guests. Is anybody out there have a question for Adonna, Christian, or the curatorial team? You can put it in the chat box, or you can just, we'd rather you just blurb it out. Well, Donna, I just want to say I wish that you could have come. I know it's with COVID and schedules and all of that, it's almost impossible, but I would have had so much fun watching you draw between these chimps, as you've done in some other installations.
Oh, I love drawing on the walls. The cleaner the wall, the more I want to draw on it. I'm not growing out of that at all. I just love it.
And I love this little animal, the Dwiker. It's this toothed deer from, I think, Vietnam or Southeast Asia. It was a very specific animal that you put in there. So
yeah, I like that juxtaposition of predator prey, and then the animals again, like that already look part predator, part prey. It's like my work here is done.
Oh yeah.
You found this kind of strange in between world that they occupy. So it was a very, I felt, natural choice.
And that's the little one with the cuffs on its legs.
Yeah.
And then, as you said, the split glacier, and then the vortex.
Oh yeah.
The vortexes are throughout.
Yeah, I've got to add a little extra element of in all of them. This kind of like, I mean, whirlpools are fascinating. I've always been kind of terrified of tornadoes and whirlpools. Like, they've always been.
Hey, in Florida, we have sinkholes.
Yeah, see, all of these things are very frightening to me.
You never know when you're going to disappear.
Well, that sinkhole is
go to bed and the house goes into the sinkhole at night.
That's like the elephants. That's my version of a sinkhole, where I was like, sometimes the ground just caves in. If it wasn't scary enough out there sometimes.
Well, you grew up in Iowa, is that right? Adonna, did you ever experience tornadoes there?
Yeah, several tornadoes, yeah.
Okay.
And I remember the last one, I'll never forget, was running up the side of our yard, and we were gonna go into our storm shelter, and the sky turned green.
Oh, yeah.
Looking at the daffodils going, what is this? And then sure enough, like a freight train.
Wow.
Yeah, then my parents moved us to California. And then as soon as we moved to California, we had that big earthquake that knocked our fireplace down on top of the roof. And then we couldn't go in the living room of our house for a while. Yeah. So we were like, oh gosh, we are not safe anywhere.
Well,
that's true. You're not. It's like anywhere you move.
Elements have really informed your work. These experiences, for sure. So Nathan, you had said, I think before we started recording, that you had started discussion with Christian like a year and a half before. So that was before your family was even pregnant, Christian.
Well, we were pregnant.
Oh, you were.
Yeah, but
Okay.
pardon me?
And then you became dad in the middle of the whole.
Yeah, in the middle of this whole
Gosh.
process. Yeah, it was magical. It was powerful, you know, and for me, it just gave me fuel. You know, it was another reason to do more, to be better, to elevate. You know, I mean, I think that's what children do to us. You know.
Well, I would like to ask that question of everybody, that between doing your own personal work and then you also work at the museum, Christian,
Yeah, I'm the
and
gallery
also being
manager.
a parent. And I had this experience, and I was a single parent of doing all these things. How do you do it? How has everybody managed, and how have you found the way to keep doing your own personal work when you have all of these other demands on you? I see
Well,
Nathan moves mountains
yeah, he does.
every day. He moves mountains.
Well, you know, I'm really lucky. I have an amazing partner, and she, you know, is willing to do some heavy lifting to give me time. She believes in my process and what I'm doing, and she understands that I'm a happier, healthier person when I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And
Oh,
you know, it's, you know, we both you know, we often kind of say to each other, you know, it's like when you're on an airplane and the air masks come down, you know, you
right.
got to put it on yourself before you put it on someone else. You know, you need to, for you to be able to share and to give, you know, you have to be whole, you know, and you have to be
Yeah.
healthy and happy. And I also have a tremendous amount of support at work, because I work in a glass museum. You know, everybody there is a major art enthusiast. They're all about artists and process, and they understand, and they've been, you know, nothing but super supportive. You know, whether I need a couple hours in an afternoon to do something, or you know, or just, you know, moral support, just, you know, encouraging me, and you know, giving me, you know, a reason to keep going as well. You know, I want to make them proud. I want to make my, you know, family proud. You
That's
know,
beautiful.
so it really, you know, in my case, I'm just lucky. I have a ton of support, you know, and I'm super appreciative for it.
Yeah.
How about you, Adonna?
You know, it's an interesting question. It's definitely not easy. I'm a single mom too. I have my daughter over 80% of the time. So in a way, I'm very fortunate that this is my studio. It is 10 feet from my house. So my day just revolves around, I wake up, get her to school, work in the studio, pick her up. Sometimes we do homework at the same time. Like, she does homework, I work in here, make a meal, come back in here, go back in there, make sure she's doing her homework, come back out here. It's just
Yeah.
kind of a constant. You have to learn that time is a luxury. It's not something you just necessarily get. Free time, you don't just earn, like, it's just not there. So you take your time when you can get it. So if it's an hour here, it's an hour there. So I've had to learn over the years to be able to get in and out of that state faster, and be able to just pick off where I left off while I'm doing dinner, dropping her off somewhere, going to class, you know. So it's not easy.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but I think the saving grace is that I can work from home.
Yes.
You're definitely right. You've got to be an opportunist. There is no free time. You know, those days are long gone.
Yeah, free time. I'm
Yeah.
like, free time, I'm asleep usually.
Yeah, exactly.
I got 30 minutes. It's not enough time to draw. I'm just gonna put my head down, and when my phone goes off, I'm out the door. Like,
In some ways, it's like that. It's like a game of kick the can. You know, you got to kick it down the street every once in a while. Keep it going.
I'm finding, though, at this stage, you know, I've been doing this for 25 years, and I'm finding that I've come to really appreciate the time between. I'm coming to find for myself at least that the space, the time between working is really important. That not working is kind of
Yes.
important.
Yes.
I find that lots of things develop in your mind when you step away from things.
That's right.
And I used to, stress out about, oh, I should be working, I should be in the studio, I should be leaning into it. But I'm actually now going the whole opposite. If I'm not in the studio, then I need to be making the absolute most of the other thing that I'm doing, not thinking about work, so that when I come back, I'm that much more fresh, that much more objective, having objectivity in what I'm doing and looking at it, seeing what's good and what's bad, and being able to assess for myself if I need to make adjustments or right track, wrong track.
In the downtime, you're unconsciously percolating.
Always.
Yes, that's right.
Always. So I've come to value that over time.
We have a question in the chat. Does everyone have time for another question?
Yeah.
Christian, Adonna? Yeah, okay. This person, Danielle Bus.
Oh, hi.
Oh,
Leslie.
okay, good.
Hi, Adonna.
Danielle, you're welcome to ask your question in person if you like.
Oh, I just wanted to ask you guys, and I'm forgive me, I joined late. That whole East Coast, West Coast thing threw me off. How has COVID affected your actual work, your content? Not so much, I totally get that it affects your lives and the way you create your work, but how has it affected the content in your work? And hi, Adonna. Yay. Adonna did one of my tattoos.
Oh, nice.
Tattoo artist too.
Yeah, I dabble in tattooing as well.
Wow. I want one.
I can't recommend it enough. It was the best 2.5 hours just to hang out with my favorite artist and chat. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
That's a fun time. Yeah, we had actually planned to do the tattoo and then COVID hit, right? And then
then we scheduled it when things kind of opened up a little bit again in November, and then they shut down again.
So we had a little window of 2 or 3 weeks where we could finally do the tattoo, and then it shut down again, and then that was it. So
now I have to know, what is the tattoo of? Can you say?
Let me see. I don't, for some reason you're not showing up on the maybe grid video. No, that's not it.
Oh. Was it a praying mantis?
No, it's a pig with a bra on.
What? It's a pig with a bra?
A penguin with a
penguin.
bra on.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It was so fun to do that.
Well, as far as how COVID's affected me, it's really just, I don't know that it's specifically, I don't know the most direct way it's affected my art, but I know how it's affected the way I use my time. It's affected how I understand that time isn't, it's fleeting. It's here today, it's gone tomorrow. Make the most of it, squeeze everything out of every day. That's really for me what's happened in the last year.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Thanks, Christian. Adonna.
Oh, yeah. Goodness. COVID, well, everything just shut down. And it honestly didn't affect my life that much because I work in a garage by myself. So
yeah.
In a weird way, I was like, I have been living like COVID for at least 10 years. The only difference was I got to wear masks to the grocery store, which I'm not totally opposed to anyway, because I was kind of freaked out about cold and flu season generally. But I think what it really did was, it was more of, isolation from my family and my mom. And my mom passed at the end of COVID. So I didn't really get to see her that whole year. And so it was more of the repercussions of COVID are worse for me than it was actually during COVID.
Right.
I always said, when it's over, we'll just go back. But you realize you don't get that time back. So it's more looking back on it where I'm like, wow, the adjustment. Being in lockdown with a preteen is no joke. And for the first time,
Again.
I was like, school needs to reopen. Those hours during the day are sacred and they are gone. And yeah, it really was difficult because I'm like, talk a big game about switching back and forth, but I was used to having those school hours where I got my time.
Yeah.
Then it's like, mom knocking on the door, mom with her cat, throw the cat in the studio, mom. And I was like, oh my God.
Right.
This is a new beast. So I would say productivity probably went down significantly during COVID. And
Understandably.
most of the galleries shut down. Most of the shows kind of didn't really happen.
Yeah.
Everything just really slowed down, and it was a big year of kind of revelations and reflection for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still coming out of it now, but yeah, I think it's going to take some time to really recover what was lost. And
Yeah.
And then
Too
in terms
big,
of sub,
I think for everyone, we're all going, it's going to be sort of something that we come to understand more in time. Not enough time has really passed.
Right. I feel like it's still so fresh. Like until I look on it and go like, wow, I don't know how I've really been affected yet, because the work's just starting to come out now. My daughter's back in school now. The work's just starting to come out of that now. And so in the next few years, we're going to see, we're going to see what happens. I'm not even sure.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I'm sorry for dragging the conversation down a bit.
Oh, no,
No.
not at all. I'm so glad you joined. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. We have another question from Edmund Ziegler about your influences. Are there one or more artists that inspire your choice of subjects or style? I think Edmund is seeing some Bosch or Dali in there somewhere. Adonna, you did mention surrealism in your artist statement.
Oh, I love surrealism. Yes, very much so. You're totally spot on with Hieronymus Bosch and Dali. I was a huge in school, and especially when we did art history, I was like, oh, that's cool. Impressionist, cool. But when I saw the surrealist movement, I'm like, these people are speaking my language. Like painted dreams, yes, please. Yes, thank you. Sometimes the most nonsensical things make the most sense to me, because I feel like that is the best way to describe what life feels like. So yes, surrealist. And then when I first saw Hieronymus Bosch's work, I'm like, this guy is such a weirdo. He just wanted to draw what he wanted to draw, but at the time, that's all they could do was religious work, so that's what he did. Yeah, so it's always been a dream of mine to get over to Spain and see, you know, the triptych in person.
Oh, I've seen it. I have seen
Have you
it.
seen it?
It's much smaller than you would imagine.
Really? Because I imagine it's so
Yes.
big.
Nope, it's not though. Yep, it's at the Prado.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, one day.
And I will just say that Ed picked up on that. He's a docent at the Dali Museum.
Oh,
Yes.
well, there you go.
Yeah, but yes, I've seen those little Bosch characters in your.
Here's one here. We have this little human on the swing with the bird head. Yeah.
The little bird mask.
Well, thanks so much for your time today, Christian and Donna, and for indulging our questions and speaking about your work and being vulnerable about being a parent and the burdens that we carry. Is there anything else that anyone wants to say or ask before we?
It's just such an honor to live with these works, and I just congratulate everyone. And I thank my wonderful colleague Nathan for bringing everybody together and giving us all this opportunity to really revel in these gorgeous works.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got a couple more months that we get to enjoy them.
2 more months, and we're excited to. One of the things that COVID did to the Art Center was that we've not been able to be open on weekends, which is prohibitive for many of the areas folks that would want to come. So we're going to be open on Saturdays though in November and December again from 10 to 2. So we're really excited about
Yes.
being able to have more people from the region who otherwise would be working during the week. So that's exciting news. And just as a reminder to take some extra time today or this weekend to look at Adonna's website and Christian's Instagram page and explore more of their work.
Yeah, my Instagram is probably more updated than my website. I haven't done it in years.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, you
Good
can
to know.
just Adonna Khare to Instagram. That's probably going to get you maybe a little bit more information on what's actually going on.
Okay.
But I just wanted to say a quick thank you to Nathan and Catherine too, and thank you. And Christian, your work is gorgeous, and glass
Thank you so much. Likewise.
really blows my mind, like how you can work in such a sensitive and delicate material, and the patience and meticulous nature that you have that I know I don't have. So I really, really admire that. And so I just feel so fortunate to be in the show. And after COVID and all this has just been such a breath of fresh air to kind of come back into the art world again and be with you guys and to show at this beautiful place. And so I just want to say I'm very grateful. Well, thank you.
Oh, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Well, thank you for that. I'm honored to be showing with you. I think that Nathan, he saw this in his mind a year ago, and it's kind of interesting how it came to pass, but it's fabulous. I'm grateful to be showing with you, and thank you, Nathan, for the opportunity. This whole thing has sort of set me on a new course personally, so I'm just looking forward to following through with that, and thanks again.
Yeah, we're really excited about seeing more work in this vein, Christian. I know we've got some exciting new art spaces in the area, and maybe they want to show your work because they should.
Perhaps.
This is your reminder that today's session has been recorded. After our marketing team polishes it up, it will be on our YouTube page, and we'll be able to share it and watch it as many times as we want.
Yay.
So that's YouTube, search for Dunedin Fine Arts Center and go to our videos. If you don't want to watch this one, we have years and years and years worth of wonderful content, conversations. We have stuff from our instructors. So there's a lot of good stuff on there. Don't miss our next virtual conversation with Anne Hieronymus, another LA artist. Adonna, I don't know if you know of her or know her. Really, really fascinating work. She's this big piece back here. I don't know if you can see it behind the particular. These are colored pencil drawings. Really amazing work. And then this is all constructed out of cardboard and found objects and knickknacks. And so really, really interesting work. And we're excited to speak to Anne November 9th at 1 p.m. That's a Tuesday, not a Friday. Register like you did for this one through our website. And just a bit about our hours. And again, this does not have our November hours. So in November, we'll be open from 10 to 2 on Saturdays. That's beginning November 7th. Is that right, Catherine?
The first weekend in November.
Okay.
Yes.
So looking forward to that. Thanks again, Adonna and Christian, and all of our guests. Thanks for coming today, and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.
Yes.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Nathan.
everybody.
Lauren,
Thank you guys.
Happy
Hey.
fall.